Hello and welcome to another episode of Pirate Radio. This week it's going to be the season preview. We've taken a slightly different approach and decided to do the season preview after week one of the season, because this way we'll be able to know a little bit more about how things are going to go, give ourselves a bit of a head start. So let's get right into it. Let's start at the top. Let's start with 7, what's happened with them. And Chaos, you might know something about this. Why don't you tell me about what happened to 7 pre-season?
I don't really know actually what happened. I just know that I ended up joining and then Stark ended up joining. Ali quit everything without much ceremony or explanation. That's kind of what happened. I don't really know why, or I don't know him that well as a person. He just decided he was done with everything and they needed a demo. So then I joined. My cats are still going absolutely apeshit to my right. And then somehow, somewhere along the way, after I said I would join, I had no prior understanding this would happen, but somehow then we ended up with Stark back as well. I guess the inside scoop on that is that the team wasn't entirely happy with Piscari. And then I guess the prospect of sort of having the old lineup plus, well, not the old lineup, but I guess the best lineup of all the sort of Crown 7 lineups, tempted Stark back in, I guess. So now we have that lineup. And that's kind of what happened.
I don't know who it was, but someone was saying the other day about how there was some 15-20 minute captain begging Stark to get back in the game because he missed him and just needed, the return of the king.
Yeah, so we were having a conversation on Mumble. We went on Mumble just to talk about after I said on Steam that I would join and play, we got on Mumble just to figure out, what's the plan, when we're going to play, what's the approach, what's the goal or whatever, how we're going to go about things. And somehow Stark just ended up being there because I think I joined. It's like the AIDS Rip Mumble where Stark hangs out anyway, along with Captain and that who played jump maps there now, and probably get up to AIDS business as well. Yeah. So Stark ended up joining as well, and then after everyone left, it was me, Captain, and Stark, and Captain just went on for about 20-30 minutes about how great it would be if Stark was playing, but he talked about it in the context Stark was playing, oh yes, we would go to LAN and it would be really good, we would have the best lineup we could have of all the teams. And then I was half an hour of this, Stark was just okay, I'll play.
So it worked then, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
It worked exactly as planned.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was good. It was good work. Good work by Captain. But yeah, this sort of leaves Piscari on the side. But I mean, I guess to some people it seems like I kind of joined and then just cut Piscari because I'm a snake or whatever. But my understanding is the team wasn't particularly happy with how Piscari played, or not because he was a bad player, but he just didn't really fit the approach of the team, and in terms of sort of gelling, it never really happened. They'd swapped his role back and forward. So I think we never got this far in the discussion because Stark immediately said he joined, which just sort of put everything else out the window. It was yes, we'll take Stark regardless of anything else.
Yeah.
But I think there would have been a discussion we had to have about Piscari if that hadn't have happened. I don't know what would have come of it.
Yeah.
Chances are we would probably have tried it with me calling for a week and seen what happened and then made a decision. But he was kind of already on the chopping block, to my knowledge.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about that because it did seem kind of, I mean, when Stark says I'll play, you would expect that any top team that has the chance to play with Stark would, but I wasn't sure if Piscari was a question mark up until that point or if it was just, okay, Stark can play, so we have to cut someone for him.
Yeah, it wasn't super cutthroat. There was already this big sort of...
Okay.
Piscari, I don't know how it would have gone, because as a distant coach, because obviously when they were playing online I didn't really do the coaching thing much, but if I had been coaching I would have said you guys need to really consider what you're doing with Piscari, because from watching Ali's stream and stuff, he seemed sort of all over the shop. And me thinking about coming into that team, me and Piscari wouldn't have gotten well at all, because I'm very sort of strict. I need everyone to concentrate all the time and be reliable in doing what they ask them to do. And as sick as Piscari is at aiming, he's a bit of a spacer.
He lacks the discipline that I think
and he has
Happy had, for example.
Yeah, and he has a weird attention span. It's not even intentional. It's not he has a bad attitude, but he just sort of, he's got a limited attention span. I don't think we would have been very compatible, but I think we probably would have given it a go and seen how it could have been. But with Stark, it was just why waste anyone's time? I think it worked best for everyone because we didn't waste a week of Piscari's time, so he could join Arctic Foxes straight away, which kind of worked out for everyone, I guess. If we'd like mucked about for a week, fucking him about, Arctic Foxes might have found someone else, and then he'd be teamless for the season. So I think it finished up about as good as it could have.
Yeah, I think obviously it all makes sense, and like I said, if anyone gets an opportunity to get like the best player in the game, you're hardly gonna like turn it down. So yeah, it wouldn't have been particularly fair to trial Stark alongside literally anyone else in the game. But considering obviously we have now 7 Stark, Thalash, Captain, Drak, Cadus, Raymond, that did leave another dead team on the side. That is Perminators, who only made it 1 game into preseason playoffs before, I suppose you could argue, collapsing due to your departure, and I assume a lack of interest from the rest of the team in continuing.
Yeah, it was uncanny timing, I guess. Like, I wouldn't have left otherwise. I would have seen it through and seen what happened, but...
If, I'm curious, sorry to interrupt, but if you didn't qualify for Prem, would you have played in high?
I highly doubt
the team just have folded?
I highly doubt we would play in high, just because I think certain people would have not wanted to play, and also just the fucking trauma of losing probably would have fractured the group.
Yeah, probably.
But we would have seen, like, regardless of, like, the 7 thing sort of happened. Like, we played the first playoff game and lost, and it was either that night or the next night, this alley thing. I think literally that night, the alley thing happened. So the next day, I decided I would join 7, because I think it literally was like 7. It's not why I did it, but I think 7, it was like kind of, I join or they'd kind of die as a roster. I don't think there was anyone else they would have accepted sort of that could join and make it worthwhile. So for me, it sort of coincided with me, like, we lost the playoff game, which made me sort of, I don't know, when you're someone who has played to win for a long time, I kind of came back not really meaning to play to win, just to play for fun, like 1 or 2 nights a week. But then losing sort of knocks you out of it. It did the same for like Sam as well, even though it obviously didn't work out. Like, it kind of knocks you out of this mentality, and you just want to win, and you do what you do what you can to win. So that sort of made me more motivated to play. Like, getting all like the shit talk from people sort of made me more motivated to play properly. So just as a space opened up in 7, I suddenly had like a renewed desire to play on a good team. So that sort of worked out for me. But yeah, I think, to be honest, when I ended up leaving Perminators, we were already sort of like half discussing not carrying on anyway, or at least the reality that we probably might not make it through playoffs really dawned on us. So the conversation was already happening, I guess, and this was just sort of the thing that made it really easy to decide.
Makes sense then. Obviously, if we talk about it in the context of the games that have happened so far, logically the next team to talk about would be Arctic Foxes. As you said, they gained Pescari recently in the place of Shocky, who, it's my understanding, was only ever going to be a temporary figure until they could get another guy. I think the idea was, he'd like play how much of the season it took for them to get a replacement. So now, we got Foxes looking like Pescari, Marsh. Feeling is back on pocket. I know there was probably about a week where Murye was going to play or something. I don't know quite what happened with that.
At last season's conclusion, it was pretty much understood by everyone on Arctic Foxes that Feeling wouldn't be continuing. Right. I don't know what's changed in that regard. Maybe picking up Pescari gave him new ideals on how the team would develop or anything. But I don't know why he decided to come back, but he was pretty certain about not playing anymore after last season. From what I know, at least.
I think part of it was like he couldn't or didn't have the time with his job to go to LAN or to practice properly for LAN. But I think in the end he decided he quite wanted to, so he managed to figure something out with his work. But it kind of happened after they'd already taken, I don't know how you say it. People give me shit for saying it wrong all the time. Is it Murray?
I think it's Murray. I'm not sure.
Like, someone told me it was Murray once, and that's like stuck with me. So now I always think it was Murray.
Murray.
But it's Murray, like, it's so wrong. Like, but yeah. So he was gone, like he left, but then he fixed it with his work schedule, and I guess they had a decision to make between Feeling and Murray. And since he was like that main caller and sort of the core of the team in that regard, I guess they decided it was best to go with him. Even though I know that some of them probably felt Murray. I'm going to call him Murray. Fuck it. Murray was the better soldier, like individually. I think obviously they decided Feeling was necessary.
Yeah, I would have made the same decision. I think Feeling adds a lot to that team. And on that topic, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I think this team looks stronger than the Arctic Foxes of last season. Shocky did play really well, and he has. I mean, I'm not set in this opinion, but that's the impression I get, because Shocky, while he did play really well and was one of the only two players on that team with real experience. I feel like Puskari's talent and his potential is close to... I think there's not much that needs to change in the environment of team that he plays in for him to be realizing his potential very soon. I think if this team plays well, and if Feeling calls well, and they have structure to their play, I think Puskari will develop quite a lot this season.
I feel like on a day-to-day basis, Puskari is probably going to be the better scout for them, but like Shocky is, oh my god, literally, I wish I could show you. My cats are having a fight like around my fucking feet. Oh, I'm going to fucking scoot them away. Right. Yeah, I think on a day-to-day basis, Puskari will be like the higher performing player, but Shocky is like a star, like quality player. It's something, it doesn't exist in many players in the current era of TF2 where you just, it's the stuff you can't really analyze, like all the micro decisions that you can't really, without doing like a slow motion demo review, you can't fully appreciate them. These are all the things that Shocky really brings, but because he's not that motivated, he only brings them when he feels like
when he's on, when he
like he'll have a week or a spell or a night where he plays like it's 2013 and he's the fucking best scout in the game, but that will only happen when he gets like really focused.
The question you have to ask then is, if this is a LAN team, would Shocky have been the better player? I mean, was he just not playing?
I think he couldn't go to LAN in the end. I think he was down to play, but he couldn't make the LAN, so they had to like replace him. That's why he could. Fair. That's why he would carry on playing until they found someone. Because the only reason he couldn't play was they wanted someone for LAN. I think.
Okay.
But either way, like I think honestly, Shocky would have been, if he was willing to play, like if he could play the LAN, I think Shocky would be the better choice, just because there's so many like potential players in this team. Other than like Feeling, everyone is kind of like still a potential player.
Yeah.
And I think just in virtue of having that one really seasoned veteran who can reliably turn it on when he wants to, I think that would have been really valuable for them. Whereas Puskari is more.
That would take a lot of weight off Feeling's shoulders because there's a lot resting on him in this team.
But I think long term, I guess Puskari probably has more to offer because just being like hungry, I guess, for the game is important. But I kind of feel like like we played them on Thursday and we kind of crushed them, to be honest. We beat them 6-1, 4-1, and I was very dissatisfied with the result. Like based on how the game went, we should have actually, for my taste, we could have 5-0, 5-0'd it, and I was very disappointed in the 4-1 on process, just because of the way the game played out. So that kind of, I feel like that roster at the moment is underperforming a lot in terms of like not being a sum of its parts. But I feel like there's a very reasonable reason this is happening at the moment. Like the scout combo for me is a bit unbalanced. Like they both feel a little bit off. Like Marosh is Marosh the flank scout and Puskari is combo scout. I couldn't really figure it out.
I'm not sure. Well, I've not watched this season, so I don't know what roles they've been playing since like a lot of these roster changes have happened at the start of this season. But I know that in previous teams, Marosh has played, or he's preferred to play flank scout because that's like a lot of what he's done to develop as a player is like watching Stark demos, and Stark is as a flank scout as you can have. But apparently he's really strong on pocket scout despite it not being his preference. So I don't know.
Yeah, because for me, like in terms of playing on a top team, if I was to slot these two players onto top teams, say like they weren't playing together or playing on this roster, for me, Puskari would have to be on the flank because of his mentality, and Marosh would have to be in the combo because of his mentality. But in this roster, and I guess for Marosh always, he's been on the flank. But I feel like Marosh is a bit, like he's quite passive for a flank scout.
Yeah, he's very suited to pocket scout, but he doesn't want to play it.
And Puskari is quite unreliable. Like he can turn up and shit on kids, but he can also just sort of be a bit all over the shop, which is not really what you want in a top level pocket scout. You want someone who's like, well, for me at least, you want a Happy Cool, you want a, like what Thalash is now becoming, where you're just dependable. You don't feel the urge to go for all these plays. So what ends up happening at the moment is they have a flank scout who's not always in the right position at the right time because he's quite passive, and you have a pocket scout who's not particularly dependable and is making lots of weird mistakes, which sort of skews the whole team. So neither scout is really always doing what they should be doing, so you end up with quite an unreliable scout combo, even though I think on the balance of things, they're actually a well-balanced scout combo, because one is very passive and one is sort of more random and playmaking. But for me, I would swap their roles. Like Puskari had like a role swap on 7 twice in the past month. Originally, he was flank with Thalash on combo, but then Thalash wanted to play flank scout, or they wanted Puskari on the combo, so they changed that around. But then just before they cut Piscari, or we cut Piscari, they were going to change it back. And I think they learned that Piscari is just a bit too unreliable at the moment to play in the combo. Like, he does too many random things. Like, because if you zone out as a flank scout, at least the way I see the game, most situations only require 5 guys to like do a specific job, and you have one like free like star player who can do what he wants. Like, that's the Stark. And for me, Piscari sort of has to be that guy. Otherwise, he makes too many mistakes and causes more problems than he lends advantages. Whereas Marosh, I feel like, could be that stable guy. Like, he doesn't have this urge to run in and die and make plays. So I feel like mentality-wise, they've got it flipped at the moment. But it would sort of mean Marosh sort of relearning the game. So I guess he's never played it. But I think long-term, that would actually be better for them. That's just like my opinion, though.
If it helps, I tried to be of some vague assistance and wanted to see who was the pockety scout man based entirely on the logs, and they both basically got reversed heals on different maps. I'm
Really?
assuming like second map like process. I'm assuming Marosh is supposed to be pocket scout because second map like Piscari got like a bunch more heals, but also Marosh did snipe for like 15 minutes. So I'm gonna assume it's Marosh on pocket scout, right? But based entirely on logs alone, I would take that with a pinch of salt, to be honest.
Yeah, this is the thing, because like on Badlands when we played them, like my approach to the game was literally just spam slope because I know that both scouts play there. So I couldn't tell like who's the combo scout by. Normally you can tell by the mids, like it's a scout who's with the medic or who rolls out slope and plays one with slope. Yeah. But both scouts would play on slope, so I would just spam slope the entire game. So it made it really difficult to figure out. And in the stalemates, they both off classing all the time anyway. Like they're always having NG Pyro, NG Heavy, or Heavy Sniper. So there was never any clear moment for me, at least, where I could tell, because they were nearly always like either both like with the combo, or the game was so stretched for them, like they were losing a fight, that it was sort of random playmaking time anyway. But I couldn't really piece it together. It was really weird.
Like, to be honest, considering like the fact that it's a pretty newly formed scout combo, it could be that they don't even have it particularly defined just yet. They could just be more or less making things up as you go along. Just to clarify the bit which you said, Piscari, Marsh, Feeling, DD5F still there, Adam Racecar, Raptor, basically, like I said, Foxes from last season, but with Piscari replacing Shocky. There's not a great deal more to say about the week 1 game, but we'll just reiterate it for those who didn't catch the little thing. It was obviously Badlands process week 1. 7 stomped a solid 6-0, 6-1 on Badlands, 4-1 on process. I was impressed to see, obviously, first game getting Stark back. On Badlands, he goes, I think 34 for 9 or something. He's pretty good at the game. He's Return of the King and all that. But of course, being the perfectionist you are, you still find something to complain about,
Well, yeah, like
still got to whip the team in shape.
Well, on process, like it should be a 5-0. Like we were up 4-0, and then we crushed them on mid. Then like we're chasing on second, and we're like, it's like a situation where we should guaranteed wipe and like get second for free and have full advantage to push last. Somehow Raymond dies to like the 3rd arrow of the game from Raptor. Like he DD5F bombs him, then he catches an arrow. Some shit like this happens, and then we trade medics. So I call to take crits, and the idea is just crits from mid to second, but all our players end up running in and dying, so we have to give up mid, and then we have to then crits into mid. And I guess for someone who's not that seasoned on playing demo, mid to second on process is a really nice crits. Like it's a nice angle. It's like you come out sewers, you crit second. It's really pleasant. But critsing second to mid is not nice at all. Like I would never make that call. Like I made the crit score on the understanding we would have mid, and then we sort of threw it all away and ended up having to crits to mid, and it's a horrible crits. Like the medic's standing on their choke, they see you as soon as you walk in, the crits has to travel like 300 fucking meters. So I was really annoyed that we threw this whole situation away, and then we ended up 4-1ing it. So for me, that game should have been a 5-0 based on how it played out. And Badlands, it was 6-1, but we made some really dumb mistakes. It took us we spent the first 12 minutes pushing last, like not even joking. They had control of their Spire for about 30 seconds of the first 12 minutes, not including the mid-fight. And we were just beefing push after push, but we figured it out in the end. But yeah, there was a lot of dumb stuff happening. So I felt like if we were playing against a team that was more well-gelled together, we would have been punished, and it could have ended up like 3-1 or like 4-2 or like maybe even closer if they had a really good day. So, it was good that we got a good result, but yeah, we got to like improve a lot of stuff still.
Do you think your calling is substantially different from how Ali was doing it? I know he, from my analysis, it seems like he tends to call slightly more aggressively and a bit more on his feet. There's less structure to his calls.
Yeah, there was a real
agree.
I guess something we didn't mention is we actually lost to them in the Face It Cup.
Oh yeah,
and that was our mention. Yeah, that was our second night playing together. We played Snake War, a map we hadn't scrimmed yet together, and it was very, very evident to me that they were not used to playing certain situations the way I consider to be the correct way to play them. So, for example, like Uber advantage pushes to second with like big advantages. Ali would always just like go walk in there and do whatever like occurred to him at the time. Whereas for me, it's like I want Thalash, sitting on the fucking medic and watching for a bomber and just baying out these jumpers. And all the time we'd like do an ad push and we just sort of walk in and Thalash would run in and chase a kill, or like just run in and try and take ground for us. And I expect him to like stand back and wait, and we would just get forced and dropped and make all these retarded mistakes. But it was kind of like a nice wake up call because it showed me just exactly how much I sort of needed to put across to them about the difference of how we would play now. Because even though because to me in my head, I'd played with this roster before. I'd coached like almost this roster. Like I played with Captain Stark and Drag. Like, and I've also like I main called with Raymond. So for like 4 out of the 5 guys I've main called for before. So I felt like they would all kind of know what I wanted, and I wouldn't have to be too specific with my calls, and I could just call their old shit and it would sort of work, and Thalash would slot in. But yeah, they'd really like sort of become accustomed to the Ali style, which is very different to mine. I mean, Ali took on board a lot of like my shit as well when I was coaching, but I think particularly over last season when they were just stomping kids, they didn't really have to do it like the slow, the boring, or the less natural way as it was for Ali. So he could just call like all his own stuff and it would be fine. Whereas I feel like against good teams, it's better to have a mix of both, and I tried to impress that upon him, but they definitely, like, the scales had tipped toward Ali's, obviously because he was playing toward Ali's style, and they sort of become accustomed to that. But I think it only took like a week to shake it out of them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more, but just the level of teams this season is gonna give Seven a bit of a reality check. I think last season was quite easy for them in every respect, like, not a challenge at all.
100%.
And this season,
not even a Prem season.
There's actual players that can contest them in 1v1s and that kind of stuff, so they're going to need to make sure they're playing on point.
Yeah, I feel like the 7 that I saw at the end of last season would have struggled coming into this season.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're pretty well set now. Like, we need to learn the maps together still, but I don't know. It's not that, like, I think Ali's actually way more skilled than I am presently. I definitely need to like sort of regain my skill in a lot of ways, but I feel like the general vibe I get from the team is it's better now with me calling.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a more reliable way of playing, so it tends to promote once you get going with it tends to promote a lot of confidence, and like the team tends to, I don't know, I feel like it's just way less random. So if you're the better team, you're going to win more without like random shit happening. Whereas like a lot of random shit would happen with the old 7, even though they'd still like end up winning and crushing people. It always felt a little bit like this could so easily not have gone this way. Whereas when I'm calling, it feels like it should go this way, like, at least to me. Even though Ali's like the better player, like presently. I hope to change that though.
I think during last season, and it was probably helped by the fact that he was main calling and the games were progressing as he controlled them, but I think Ali was by far the most skilled demo in Europe and in the world.
Yeah, he
wasn't
even
in terms
peaking.
of individual play, he's just head and shoulders above the competition.
Yeah, like at last season Prem playoffs, like he wasn't anywhere near like peaking. Like it ended up being close. Like at least one of the maps, it was like 2-1 in the grand final. So it was like 2-1, 5-2, which for me, based on saying for roster, 7 should have slammed them and it not been that close.
Yeah.
And the fact Ali wasn't peaking and was kind of not underperforming that much, but not playing anywhere near his potential, it just made the team automatically have close games with people because he would call these sort of things based around this understanding that he would just shit on kids. And then when he didn't quite shit on kids, it made it all a little bit messy. Whereas I can play like shit and it's fine because I play like a pussy.
Your team carries you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I set it up, you know? I set it up, they knock him down. Easy. No problem, guys.
Considering I said, obviously, as much as things weren't perfect, your 7 still trying to get itself together a bit. Managed to crush Foxes, who granted still trying to get themselves together. Based on like kind of what I saw in the game / looking at these logs and stuff, it kind of seems like there was some poor showing from the scouts in general. Like, just because of how the team has developed, like, it's never an expectation of mine for DD5F to do anything to like try and carry the team. So it's been on the scouts have had to be really good, which obviously they had Shocky before, who was able to do quite a lot, and this time it just seemed, the scouts just basically weren't either. They haven't sorted out their roles, or maybe they just couldn't handle 7 in their present state. I think the thing is, obviously, Foxes were second last season in Prem, only partially because Champ GG folded. But do you think Foxes are actually going to be able to like sort themselves out to be contesting like top 3 or something? Because in their current state, I wouldn't expect them to be able to go against the likes of the AMS team, or to be honest, maybe even the Lego one.
See, it's interesting. I was going to raise this question because at the end of last season, it seemed pretty clear that, well, the situation we were in at the end of last season was 7 are the best team. Then you've got a couple of teams just behind them. Arctic Foxes looked pretty strong. nerdRage had some pretty good performances. And then there was just this big question mark of, we have no idea which teams are going to form out of all the available talent going into next season. And I think it's probably, I'd say it's exceeded my expectations of how good this season would be in terms of the talent playing. Like, we saw the preseason playoffs and how stacked they were.
Yeah.
So going into this now, it's kind of hard to get a clear ranking on the teams in Prem, especially because not many games have actually been played. But I get the feeling, based on how I saw their development over the course of last season and the commitment of their players, the only question mark on this roster to me is the Puskari, Marosh, the dynamic between them as scout players. But if they can sort that out and retain what they had in terms of drive last season to improve, I think they have a good chance of being top 2, top 3 team.
I'd like to see them, just because the fact that they were having some good games at the top of Prem last season. I'd like to see them reclaim at least where they were at the end of last season. I'm kind of like half hoping that this first week can be put down to teething pains and stuff like that. Just trying to sort out exactly how they're going to have themselves set up. I'm not sure who they're against, like the next couple of weeks or whatever, but I think that's probably going to be more telling than this first game. Because obviously, like, it's always going to be a rough start to the season, where it's like, your first season was like a different, even if it's a slightly different roster, and they're against the best team in Europe. Like, it's always going to put you in a bit of a dodgy position. So I think the next couple of weeks will probably give us a slightly better idea about things.
They're playing Unexpected in week 2. Which actually, for my taste, is a pretty raw draw for them, because I feel like Arctic Foxes need to get their shit together, and when they do, they're probably going to be like not much better, but they should be comfortably better than Unexpected, which is the Adiski team, in case anyone didn't kind of catch up with the name change. But like, I feel like playing them next week might be a bit too soon for them, because this Adiski team is really fucking solid at the moment. Like, they're not like incredible. They don't, other than.
Didn't they have a very convincing run in preseason playoffs?
It was quite convincing. Like, they're quite good. This is the thing. Like, I think they're quite good. They could make playoffs this season, but I feel like if they played at the end of the season, I would expect, anyway, Arctic Foxes to be, like, in a better position and should, like, be the better team. But right now, Arctic Foxes probably ain't any better than them. But I think playing them in week 2 is a bit unfortunate for them. They could get off to, like, a really shit start this season, because they already got slammed by us. They've only got like a couple of days to get their to regroup and get their shit together, and then they have to play what's like a really solid team in Unexpected. Even though, like, I mean, you got like Marosh, Piscari, and Adam are like all like really skilled. So I don't know. I guess the Unexpected team's quite skilled as well, but I don't know. I feel like on the balance of skill, there's more going for Arctic Foxes. But in terms of team cohesion and chemistry, Unexpected are way better at the moment, from what I've seen anyway.
Maybe things have changed. Nuze, you mentioned about them having a solid run in preseason playoffs, and I went back to try and refresh my mind. It wasn't as strong as even I remember, really. Like, they beat Perminators 5-1, still like a little bit kind of close. They lost to Lego 5-1, and then they only narrowly beat the French team 4-2. logically, if they were like a top Prem team looking to be like contesting players, you would have thought, like, especially like the French team, 3.5 stars, you would have thought that would be a pretty like crushing win, but that was probably a lot closer. Like I said, maybe they've sorted some more stuff out in the meantime. But I don't know, I think it's like, obviously my opinion is just like what I've seen stuff. I don't, I'm not good enough to like play any of these teams or anything. So just based on like what I've seen, it just seems still for me like a team which is a bit of like a question mark, and like can be above the midway mark in Prem, could also be below it, and like kind of neither would massively surprise me. It's kind of a little bit of a weird team kind of look at from my point of view.
Yeah, like, I don't think they're incredible by any means, but for me anyway, I always go into a season thinking these kind of teams, when I'm in like a new team that's just formed or made a big roster change that's changed the team, I want to play this level of team, this mid-Prem team, I want to play them at the end of the season when all of our shit's sorted out and we're really confident in what we're doing, and then these mid-level teams, we can beat them no problem. But in week 1 or week 2, when you're like just getting your shit together and you play the mid-level teams, that's where you can like drop points that you don't expect to drop, and then your season can sort of spiral out of control. I'd much rather like if I was Arctic Foxes, okay, yeah, they played 7 week 1. It doesn't really matter. It's not a game they probably expect to win anyway, so it's sort of a throwaway game. But then you want a nice, easy game to sort of get going. And then, week 4, week 5, that's when they'll be ready, like, to take on the bigger teams, I think.
So the thing is, you've got this expectation thing again, like the team that got 7, the team that got 2nd last season. If they go into their week 2 game and, they're not, like, they haven't quite got themselves, like, sorted or whatever, and they do drop a map or they drop points or whatever, like, they could even, like, lose to this Idisky team. If they then lose that, you got to kind of wonder about, like, the mentality, especially, I'd say, when it comes to, like, Pescari. Because it's kind of like, and everything I've heard, Pescari has a certain kind of, like, mentality about the game, and, like, maybe he thinks, this team isn't going to work itself out. Maybe he won't be committed to, like, sorting out that whole kind of focusing, like, attention type of stuff.
I think with Pescari, he doesn't sort of tilt because his team's losing or whatever. He's just a bit sort of all over the place all the time. And when the team's playing well enough to accommodate it, he can like have his strengths show through. But it's kind of on the team to be sorted enough to just accommodate his randomness.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think Pescari will be like a problem one way or the other. The team even though he's random, you kind of know what you get with him. Like Raptor made a comment in the interviews, like something like, it was weird playing with Pescari tonight because like we didn't really know what he was doing yet because we haven't played with him much. But I feel like with Pescari, that's often going to be the case, even when you're used to it. And it's just something you have to kind of like, you have to just be like a solid unit around him and let him do his thing, essentially.
I feel like that's something that not enough teams do properly, which is like play to the strengths and cater to the weaknesses of their players. And I think you can adjust that and do that quite easily by just adjusting small things about how your team works and the dynamics within it. Like the example I'll give is in Froyotech when Clockwork was playing Flank Scout. He's a very smart player and he's got insane mechanics. It's not just that he's all DM, like all aim, no brain, but he wasn't particularly disciplined, and Froyo played a style that accounted for that, so that Clockwork is allowed to just run around and DM. And that's something that I tried to do with Funds at GA, because I think he's the same kind of player that's got a lot of mechanical ability that isn't particularly disciplined. And I think whenever I've seen teams do that to cater to the strengths of their players, it works usually really well. And I think that's something that they kind of need to address, whether it's with Marosh or Pescari. And I think, it makes more sense to have Marosh on Pocket Scout and Pescari as the Flank Scout, and play around that. But if they're not addressing the strengths and weaknesses of their players, then they're not going to have the stability to develop to be the top team that I think they're expecting to be.
Yeah, that seems fair. I think, like, honestly, like, even though for me, I wouldn't like that fixture if I was Arctic Foxes. I reckon they probably should win. Stylistically, I think they're going to match up pretty well against Unexpected, just because Samsky, like, from playing Unexpected, Samsky's like quite passive and then sort of shows up like in like say mid fights. He shows up very late on to sort of get a flank or get a kill and sort of turn heads while his team plays quite passive. But Arctic Foxes are quite passive as well. So I think in the opening Samsky's used to finding, he's still going to find like a lot of people bunched up together, like expecting and waiting for him. I know when they've scrimmed, it's gone very much Arctic Fox's way. And it's probably one of the few teams that has like Scout DM that can actually sort of deal with Sorex.
Yeah.
As well. So I feel like stylistically they're actually going to match up pretty well. It's just a question of if they like basically can just perform. I think if they perform to their level, they should get through this game. They've got like an okay run of games after that. So I think as long as they can win week 2, they should be okay. And they should win it. It shouldn't really be that difficult. It's just all I was saying is it's not a very kind time to play them, in my opinion, but they should still win, I think.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about Seven or Foxes before moving on to our next couple teams? Or are we happy? All right, moving on then. Okay, so we got next team to talk about, AMS team, now known as Bazooka Sports, because team was, I would argue, actually still equally ridiculous. AMS, Scrab, Tiger, Tom, Smear, Serotonin, basically same as what they had when we last discussed them. No big changes there. They played nerdRage in their week 1 game. nerdRage is Namtak, Neo, Glastry, Korvac, Elacor, and Ombrak. And it was apparently the most interesting game of the week, and that was the one game which I managed to miss.
But it wasn't streamed, so like no one could see it.
Oh, was it even streamed? Well,
no,
then we can blame TFTV for that then.
Well, yeah, they tried, but they just didn't have like the manpower to do it. It was on the same night as 7.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing something about that. Either way, they end up trading maps 4-1 Badlands for Bazooka and 4-2 on Process for nerdRage. And I think that's a pretty interesting result, like straight off the bat, considering how nerdRage were looking pretty iffy at the end of last season, and obviously they managed to lose their home turf French LAN to a Brit mixed team. But the fact that they've come into this season managing to go toe-to-toe with the AMS team, I think is pretty impressive. That's a pretty good start to the season. Makes me pretty hopeful for them.
I think, well, it's a bit of guesswork at the moment, but the way I see this, and I'm just speaking about Bazooka Sports for the moment, but I think people probably have a tendency to rate this team a bit above what their actual skill level as a team is, because obviously the talent's there because the roster's stacked, but a lot of these players aren't the kind of I think in a similar vein that how Arctic Foxes is resting a lot on Feeling's shoulders, I think a lot of this team is depending on Smira, because I think he's the only real player on this team that checks all the boxes. He's got the skill, he's got the attitude, he's dependable, he's calling, like, and he's got the experience. Like, none of the other players check every box, I don't think. I will say we've seen Tom and Tiger as a soldier duo before, but the key difference is that whereas on Champ GG Tiger was roamer in Tom's pocket, this time it's the reverse. And I think this soldier duo is probably one of they're definitely the second best behind 7, but I think they'll give them a really good run for their money. I think Tiger and Tom will impress a lot this season.
Yeah, I was saying like all of last season that I wish they would swap roles. It's like their roles last season were like from a play style of 4 years ago. Tiger didn't have anywhere, like, not even he didn't have the discipline, but he needed to be unleashed, which you just can't really do with roamers in the current like meta. And Tom for me is sort of prone to having unreliable performances, and for me the best way to fix an unreliable performer is to give him a really like strict job to do, where he doesn't have to like suddenly like hit shitloads of shots to perform well. He can just do a job and kind of play bad skill-wise. Like, you can underperform skill-wise and know you're still doing your job, and it gives you a platform to play from, and you can get into things and then, you know, find form. And for me, like, Tom never really found form last season at all. But when you're just doing a role for the team, it's much easier to get into a groove. So I'm really glad they actually are playing these roles now.
my analysis of Tom from seasons of playing with him and from what I've seen as his strength as a player, I think he can be a bit inconsistent when it comes to some of his mechanics and his I don't know, that kind of thing, but he's almost always consistently a very intelligent player, and I feel like you can abuse game sense or your intelligence more on Roamer than you can on Pocket, because you're not tied into there's not teammates that are dependent on you doing a certain thing. I think Tom can abuse his read of the game a lot more on Roamer, and I think he's phenomenal at it. And in a similar vein, I think Pocket is a role that demands you to be consistent mechanically, and I think more than any other player currently playing, I think Tiger has that. And I don't think I'm exaggerating, because the guy's unreal in terms of his consistency with his mechanical skill and just hitting shots. Like, it's insane to watch.
Yeah, Tom was always the guy in Champ who would like do the sort of research and like the kind of theoretical like work behind the team, I guess, other than like you when you were coaching, but he was like the main force in that. And as an individual, if you're going to be like the bookish type of player, you can get way more out of yourself on Roamer than you can on Pocket.
Yeah.
On Pocket, you're so like dependent on just other things going on around you, and then you just hit your shot somewhere in there, and you can do a pretty good job. Whereas like, on like I would see all the time, like on Pocket, Tom would just like, he'd randomly like in matches, he wouldn't do it in scrims, but in matches he would just have 26 death games like out of nowhere on Pocket. I remember like, I can't remember who the hell it was against, but he went like 26 and 25 in terms of deaths across 2 maps in a match last season. And it was, I don't know, it's like the second or third time I saw this kind of game from him. And it's like, I feel like on Pocket, you're put under way more pressure to kind of do this or that. Whereas on Roamer, like, you can just do your job. Like, you know what your job is. It's, for example, for Drag, it's watch this fucking door for 10 minutes. Yeah. And you can just do that, and it's fine. So yeah, I think
I feel like Tom gets a bad rep for his Pocket performances, especially last season. But with the insight I had listening to the comms and watching them play when I was coaching, a lot of it wasn't necessarily like, I don't think that they were bad decisions on paper. I think a lot of the times it would be situations like, because he was main calling on Pocket, it would be a clear opportunity that was good to push off of and what the team should be capitalizing on, and he would call it and he would try to act out his plans, but there was either a lack of communication from the rest of the people on the team, or people weren't quite on the same page, and it would end up in so many of the situations where he would just get baited by almost by his own calls, and it would frustrate him and affect his performance otherwise. But I think taking that away completely and putting him on Roamer where he doesn't need to call and he can just focus on what he's doing and what he needs to communicate, I think it will complement his strengths a lot more.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I'm pleased to see this, like, these soldiers lining up how they do now. I don't know about the rest of the team though. Like, Seratone's kind of, I guess he didn't even he was missing for the first match. I had on Kaya playing, I think, but Seratone's a bit iffy. Smear's like really solid and dependable. He's like the only player on that team. He's the only player on that team who's ever like played in several teams and been like just consistently good.
Yeah.
Whereas all the others sort of, they've had spells when they were good, but they've never been on a team that was like either giving them a platform or just they themselves like couldn't perform. Like Ams has been really inconsistent, but Smear's the guy on that team who can do that. And then you have like Ams and Seratone, like the really random people who I don't really know how well they're going to do.
It feels like Smear has he has the experience that's allowed him different dimensions to his play, so that he can adapt to different teams, and that gives you so much insight when it comes to playing the game, because you can just read so much more into what other players and teams are doing. Question that I want to ask: do we know if Seratone has fixed his internet problems? Because I know in seasons past that's been a big concern.
I don't actually know. Like, I kind of asked the same question a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, the fact he was missing for the first game is just like classic fucking Seratone, like straight out of the gate. Like, you wouldn't expect anything else from the guy. Like, I don't know what the reason was, but whether it's PC or just a bad night or whatever the fuck, the fact he's missing the first game, it's just like, okay, it's like I've seen this one before actually. So maybe it's a one-off, but he's like, like when they picked him up, it was like an immediate concern for me. Because I've seen this AMS team 15 times before, where he gets like a pretty solid team together, and then has to get Seratone on medic because there's no one else, and it's just like their old teammates. And then, I don't know, just night after night, week after week, Seratone like randomly like having problems with his PC, his internet, and yeah, it just goes downhill from there. So I hope it's not the case again, but I mean, I won't be surprised I won't be surprised if this is not the last time we see Serotonin missing for a game or timing out in the middle of a game or whatever. And maybe it was just a complete one-off and it's really unfortunate, but...
Is this a LAN team?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the idea behind it.
Okay. Well, at least he won't have issues on LAN.
Yeah.
And I'm presuming Amps is Pocket Scout and Scrab is Flying Scout. Do we know that?
I got this wrong the other day and Ams messaged me and called me out for it. I can't remember which way around I put it. But let's tread carefully, gang. Ams is watching and he's judging.
The old Logarinos reckon it's Scrab. Scrab taking the hills.
Really? That surprises me.
Yeah, well, that's what it's appearing like.
Not. I think I don't mean it that it surprises me because of Amps. I think from what I've understood and from what I've seen of him, I've always considered Scrab to be quite a hard flank scout.
Yeah, no, both games we're seeing Scrab taking a large amount of the old hills. Based on like what I've seen of how Ams tries to like do scout anyway, I could see that making sense just for the sake of like you have Scrab being like the consistent pocket scout and whatever, and Ams kind of has his ability to go off and do Ams things if he so feels like it.
Yeah.
If he wants to run at people and do his whole kind of thing, I see that making a lot of sense in terms of just like the setup of the team. Like considering it, like Ams is the one who made the team. You would have thought he'd probably set it up like, you know, honestly, sometimes I am just going to want to pass it at them, so probably not be giving me too much of the old responsibility.
See, the reason I'd suggest, like, I think it would make sense for them to switch roles.
I think they probably did switch. I think Ams was on pocket at one point.
Yeah. The reason I'd say is, like, if you have... So I don't consider Smira to be, like... I don't think he excels mechanically. I don't think he's more skilled than a good proportion of the demo competition. Like he's there, and I'd say he's
like solid, and then he's prone to over performances sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly on LAN, so he's like, he's good, but
he plays like in like a fundamental demo, and he plays it well, which is good. But he's not one of those star players. But I think that would work really well if you have 2 star players around him in the combo. And I think if you have Amps and Tiger, 2 players that excel mechanically and are very consistent with their mechanics and their just fragging power, I think that would work really well. And the other reason is, I don't know if anyone else remembers the Planet Express lineup of, I think it was season 22, maybe 23, where they had Scrab and Rising on the flank. Because Scrab has always been a player that likes to hold W. He likes to go for plays. And I think when you pair that up with an aggressive roamer that knows how to take opportunities, I remember playing against those two, and it was like something that you need to actually actively think about as a team. It's like we always need to watch out for Scrab and Rising because they're going to be pushing, and if you don't keep them in check, they'll just run over your whole team because they have the potential to do that. And I think Tom and Scrab could do that in a very similar manner. But I just don't see the coordination being there with Tom and Amps on that flank.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I didn't really think of it like from that point of view. I just kind of assumed Amps was going to set up to allow him as much freedom as physically possible. Yeah, like I said, considering Tom's ability to read the game and make those kind of second to second decisions, which like really make sense on Roma. The idea of having someone who could work really well alongside him would pretty make sense.
Yeah. And the other reason is like, sorry to interrupt, but Scrab, I don't think Scrab's played with Smear before, so I'm not sure how disciplined he'll be or how used to the pocket scout role he will be under Smear calling. But Smear and Amps have played together a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong, or like at least on a few different lineups, and I think Amps playing a role around Smear when Smear's calling he'll feel more natural in that role. I think it would make much more sense if those two were to switch.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming logically I'm pretty sure they've tested just about every combination of that team, so I assume there's a reason they've settled where they've managed to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were the other way around before, and then something about it they didn't like, so they changed it. I mean, again, I'm going to bring it back to rather than like how they actually play and how they're used to playing, just in terms of the individual players' like mentality as people. I feel like they are pretty well matched at the moment. Like Scrab seems like he's quite quiet and agreeable, and he's going to kind of do what you tell him and maybe do the boring shit that other people don't want to do just because he's that kind of personality. Whereas Ams is a bit more like, I don't know, he's a bit more random and a bit more like the Pascari type of person who's just he's prone to doing random things, and on his day it works and on other days it doesn't. So mentality wise, I think, unlike Arctic Foxes, they're actually quite well matched at the moment. But I mean, there are a number of other things to consider, like you guys talk about. But yeah, I think they've tried it all, and I don't know. I haven't really seen this team too much so far, to be fair. I mean, as far as like the week 1 result against top 5, against nerdRage, pardon me. The surprising part of that is not so much that like this AMS team maybe isn't quite as good as people were hoping yet, but the top 5, fucking hell, nerdRage actually managed to take a map because they seem pretty weak to me. Since
their lineup's bizarre right now.
Yeah, like putting Namtak on Scout and getting Elacor in. I mean, Elacor's an upgrade, but Namtak seems like a massive downgrade on Scout so far, and I mean, from playing them, they seemed to be not like that great. I would have expected this AMS team to beat them just in virtue of nerdRage's faults at the moment, never mind how good they are.
I would probably disagree on the Elacor being an upgrade.
You reckon?
Yeah. And it took me a while to come to a conclusion about Elacor as a player because he's very different to every other demo. Unless he can be tamed, for lack of a better word, I think he really just lacks the... I don't know, there's a lot of things, especially from playing against him on LAN, there's just so many things that he could be doing to better his team situation. So many, I don't know, whether it's area denial or spam that he just doesn't do. Like, he excels at his playstyle, which is, like, deserving credit in and of itself, but unless he can be tamed and fit into the style of the team how they want him to, I guess it's on Ombrak, but like individually I see a lot of stuff from him that's like, it's almost as if he's not playing like in a competitive team. It's like he's playing a pug when I watch him play demo. Like,
the thing I want to say is, like, we got to put this in context, right? The players you're replacing here is Namtak on demo, which, regardless of whether it was a personal player performance thing or whether there was some problems with the team last season, Namtak was constantly getting picked in like random holds or whatever. That was like, It was a legitimate, serious concern for their team. And from my point of view, like, regardless of whether or not Elacor is an upgrade or a downgrade in most other aspects of the game, as long as the dude doesn't die when they're just like holding, I think it's a pretty positive thing for the team. Like I said, like, I don't know what most of that was last season, like whether it was like just, you know, a bit like overextending stuff or like the calls not being quite right, the team kind of shape not being quite right. I don't know what it was, but as long as they resolve that, I think that's the biggest thing from there.
I think maybe something that I'm neglecting in my analysis. Like, sometimes I tend to be a bit selective with things that I focus on, but I think in most games Namtak plays really well, but I think the things that you're referring to a lot, and I had noticed it on the grand finals at GA, and it happened in last season's playoffs. I think Namtak has a tendency to choke in like important games, because there's quite a difference between, like, in the early stages of GA, Namtak was just like, he was outclassing like other he was outclassing me. I'd admit. Like,
I was gonna say, weren't you the other demo?
Yeah, no, he was much better
outclassing
than
the other demo.
All of the amazing, brilliant god tier demos.
But when it came to the final, like, I didn't notice Namtak. Like, he was just not there.
Yeah, that's a proper syndrome for like demos. Like, I think I actually used to do it, not so much anymore, where you, like, in the big games, you don't die, but you do nothing. You just literally do nothing for 30 minutes. Like, you spam, and like every situation, like, you try and play it too fast, like too urgently, you just spam, you piss away all your ammo, then the real fight begins, you got no ammo, you're like, oh, fuck it, and you just sort of like drag your tail out the door and fall back. Like, I've played these games before, like, not for like a while now, I don't really do them anymore, but Namtak's a bit of like that player, and then you kind of get 15 minutes in, you're like, fuck, I haven't done anything. So you do that little overextension on choke, and then you die, and then you're like, fuck, I just died, and it all sort of spirals out of control. Like I've played these games and I've watched Namtak have these games as well. I know what they feel like, but I don't know. I guess I don't know as much about Elacor because I didn't play last season and Lemmings weren't on my radar that much until the end. But just I guess from scrimming in preseason, Elacor is. I guess he's one of the more difficult demos to play against that I've come across so far. But I guess I'm only really thinking about him in terms of head-to-head because our scrims with nerdRage, we kind of crushed them. So I didn't really notice how the team operates, I guess, on a higher level. But I just sort of noticed our own, the demo v demo interactions. Elacor was a little bit more tricky than some of the other players I've played. So I just have an impression of him, I guess, as an upgrade. Maybe he's not as good as I think.
I'll say two more things on Elacor. To me, it was the opposite. I thought he was the easiest demo to play against. Like, as far as demos that people consider to be good are concerned, whenever I have played against Elacor, I've always thought him to be pretty lackluster because he's a big name and he's got insane moments and he always puts up big stats. But in game, from when I've played against him, it doesn't feel like he has much impact at all. But to his credit, which is a definite upgrade, is like within the realms of consistency, because he will always put out damage and he'll always put out the numbers and he stays alive a good degree. So I think Ombrak's an intelligent enough caller and nerdRage are a good enough team to adapt to the styles of their players, at least to some degree. So if they're playing now with a very consistent, damage dealer, I think they'll probably adapt to playing with Elacor. And addressing the lack of medico is another thing. So someone needs to step up into medical shoes to be the pocket damage dealing role within that team. And it's not going to be Glastry, I don't think, because as far as I'm aware, I don't know. I didn't think he was a soldier main. I thought he was a scout main.
Yeah, I thought it was a scout.
And now we've got Namtak playing scout.
Before the season, I had no idea. Like I'd heard of Glastry, but what teams has Glastry been in?
From memory, he used to play scout and he used to play backup for not like the top French teams, but like the second top French teams, or like maybe top 5 like a while ago. He used to be the backup.
He's been in the top 5 circle jerk for a long time now.
I know Glastry is the guy who bought my hat for the 7 fundraiser for like $200.
Good guy.
Did he get it unwashed or washed?
I can't remember. I think he said he wanted it. He wanted it au naturel, I think was his expression. Not the French say it. Yeah, I don't know much about him, but I actually didn't even consider that when I was thinking about them because their soldiers always fucking fake nick when we play them, and I never it never really dawned on me that Medico was missing. Like I guess I knew he wasn't there, but I never whereas like with Namtak, it's like, oh, Namtak's on scout now and they have Elacor. But I never actually really considered the soldiers. But yeah, that's a fucking massive downgrade. I don't really know anything about Glastry, but I guess it has to be just because that's a pretty big deal that I just sort of overlooked. But yeah, I guess I don't know. This team is, I guess because of the way they play and because of Ombrak, they have a solid caller, so there's room for them to improve. But yeah, there's so much skill missing. I feel like with Blade gone and with Medico gone. There's Elacor's a slight skill upgrade, I think, but there's still a massive gulf there to fill.
Yeah,
who's going to do it?
Glastry's quite a downgrade from Medico on Pocket, and Namtak's quite a downgrade from Blade on Scout.
So has Namtak actually played Scout at any point before? I
don't think he's played Scout for a proper team, unless it was maybe 4 seasons ago or longer.
I think
he's been playing demo for
Yeah, I've only ever really seen Namtak as doing demo things, and I'm just thinking, regardless of whether the team plays sensibly and consistently together, just from a mechanical point of view, you're going against scouts like Pescari and Stark's back and Hams is playing just from a mechanical point of view, with scouts being as important and powerful as they are you going to be able to get away with downgrading your pocket, downgrading a scout to someone who hasn't really played scout properly before, and trust that your structure is going to get you through it? I feel like that is going to be risky. Obviously, in this game, it seems pretty even, but to us, the more we talk about it, the fact that they've got a different demo, they've got Namtak on scout, they've got a downgraded pocket. The fact that the AMS team dropped a map to them, they had on Kaya Merking, but even still, the more we talk about it, the more it just seems what was the AMS team doing?
I'm right there with you, man. It's just like slowly dawning on me. Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck? How
just-
did this happen?
Like the more we talk, I'm just like, that shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't have been the best game of the week.
Maybe Kai on medic. Well, he had 5 deaths, so it doesn't seem like it would be. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah,
Maybe dude just stayed in spawn the whole game. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I don't know. Eliker had a big game. Looking at the logs, I mean, it's not completely bizarre. Like, again, if they can adapt how their style works with the strengths of their players, like we've seen, and admittedly, like they were the examples I can think of were a long time ago, but we've seen players or teams that have played at a high level with lacking talent on the rosters. Like, I'm thinking of what was the lineup? The LG lineup in like I-46, like they had Mackie and Tyrone on Soldier. Like Banny was like on demo, and let's, for all intents and purposes, call Eliker the Banny demo of this team, just the one that's going to put up big stats and have impact in fights. Like, if he's taking heals and they have their 2 other best players, Neo and Korvac, on the flank, I'm going to just check and not presume that Neo's the flank scout. It looks like Neo's the pocket scout, so they've got Namtak and Korvac on the flank. I don't know. I feel like if they'd have Neo and Korvac playing together, they can probably do work as a flank. But I don't know. There's just too much lacking from... Like, they have one standout player on the flank and one standout player on the combo.
Yeah.
And everyone else is not really playing a role that kind of caters to their talents.
It really is such a shame that this game didn't end up like being shown, and I kind of didn't think to like try and get demos and stuff and watch it beforehand, because I'm kind of wondering, like, 4-1 reasonably convincing win on Badlands, losing the 4-2, it seems like an awful lot of it was just like Tiger and Tom not able to do that much, Scrab also not doing that much on like Pocket Scout. It seemed like Smear was the only one who kept them in it, like from the point of view of like actually finishing up the frags and stuff. Like,
they went 2-0 up as well. Bazooka Sports. They went 2-0 up.
Did they? Oh, they did as well.
Oh, it looks like it. It looks like it was just a matter of mid fights. Like, mid fights win the rounds.
Yeah.
Completely
It's
in
just-
this. I don't know.
It does seem weird. I'm gonna have to
Sounds like a
make a
joke
point
to
of finding
me.
that demo. Yeah, it does. Maybe this is where
Was it the
the
first map
AMS team
or
replaces
second
them.
map?
Second, I think.
No,
First
first.
map.
First.
Oh, okay, I don't know then.
That's
Maybe they just blow up process, to be honest.
maybe. But that's something we haven't really addressed with the AMS team is like choke potential or tilt potential. Because it's there. Like,
Well, as I
Scrab,
said, like
Tom,
you've got
they
Tiger
can be
and
emotional
Tom,
players.
who were a third of the Champ GG team, which historically collapsed because of basically those exact reasons. And yeah, you've got Scrab, who is, by my understanding, a very similar mindset. AMS, I'm certain, can definitely get that way. And then, especially, if you've got Serotonin with like connection issues, you're bringing in like a Merc every other day. Like, who the fuck
And it's
knows
similar-
what's actually going to happen there?
So, like with Arctic Foxes, the big question mark is on the experience. With this team, the big question mark's on the mental fortitude, and I think Smear's got a big job to do outside of the game, as does Feeling.
It's all on the daddy of the team to actually
Yeah, boy.
keep the boys in line. I don't know, like, I kind of feel like if we're going to end up in a position where Serotonin's intent ends up being too bad and they bring in Onkaya full time and maybe they sort themselves out a bit more, but it's obviously without knowing exactly why they needed him up to begin with, it is all basically guesswork.
Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of threw a spanner into the works in terms of calling, because as far as my understanding goes, Serotonin is or has been quite a vocal medic in some previous teams. Like, I know he called quite a bit for a player of his experience when he played for TLR at I-55. Like that lineup with when it had Hiss originally online. I think he came into that team as a unproven player and ended up calling quite a bit. I wouldn't say main calling, but he was vocal on medic. So if he's vocal on this team, and they're lacking that today. Maybe Kaya was quite different to what they were used to.
Yeah, Serotone's
And
really
maybe it
comfortable
took them
doing
the
like
first map to get used to it.
yeah, Serotone's like he's really comfortable doing like a lot of like the micro calls, just sort of moving people around and like these like I guess like the little calls that a lot of people just don't have in the team, and they can
Yeah.
help quite a lot.
Yeah.
The ones that you don't really notice until they're gone potentially. But having said all that, they probably shouldn't be losing, even with like one sub at this point. Like not to like top 5 might be able to sort their shit. nerdRage might be able to sort their shit as the season goes on, but like Damtak at the moment is way out of his depth, and Glastry is, as far as I can tell, brand new to this level of play. So really, this should have been a bit of a like as much as I was saying before. Arctic Foxes got or are getting unexpected at a bad part of the season. For me, this AMS team got nerdRage at a good part of the season. Like you're probably not going to catch them being worse than they are now. This was like the time to take 6 points from a potential like playoff like competitor, and they beefed it in my opinion. So yeah, weird start for them.
Yeah, that's it. I think probably gonna be the same again, where it's like have to just see, it's the next few weeks which are gonna show whether or not these were uncharacteristic performances from the teams, or whether this is just how they are, which I think will probably leave the top part of Prem open to a lot of different teams if this is like their actual consistent skill level. But I assume all things will kind of at least get somewhat sorted as the season goes on.
This is pretty classic of what I would have expected from, I don't know what are they actually called, AMS team?
Bazooka Sports.
Bazooka Sports.
Obviously.
Yeah, this is what we were the like choking and tilting. That's what we mentioned briefly while you were.
All right, yeah. This is like pure like classic AMS team. Like they'll do really well as underdogs, and they'll probably play close against everyone. It's like the classic AMS team thing to do. I think he tends to build that kind of mentality where it's sort of like they feel like the pressure when they're playing good teams, but then they build an underdog mentality quite well, so they can do upsets. And so far, it's sticking true to that narrative that has kind of been with AMS his entire time playing TF2. The permanent forever underdog. Lucky little guy.
Listen, as I said, maybe this is a season where like the team just does god awful, so that he can continue to be the underdog. It's all part of the.
If you lose your first 3 games, then you are the underdog trying to desperately qualify at the end of the season.
Exactly, and then he just wins it every game, 6-0 from then on.
Master plan.
Do we want to move on to third game week? Lego versus Nunya.
Sure.
No changes on either roster. Nunya, as in from what we discussed last episode, Nunya has Crafty, Earl, Yulin, Pappy, Ratslayer, Condog. Lego has Potato, Yippee, Josh, Demul, Domo, Dr. Phil. And basically, Lego just fucking annihilated them. It was like, I watched the game in its entirety, and despite the fact that Nunya managed to get around on Badlands, it wasn't quite 5-0-5-0. It was just like, every push Nunya made was just a complete disaster. Every, even the random dodgy holds from Lego always just worked out massively in their favor. I know there was one particular bit on process where an unbuffed Demul took down both Nunya soldiers. And I'm just like, how does that ever happen? I don't know. It was just a complete mess. Granted, this doesn't exactly say good things about Lego, the fact they beat Nunya, because Nunya are expected to be the worst team in Prem, getting basically 0 points. But still, the fact that they pounded quite as hard as they did is reasonably impressive. And I would like to mention, Domo in his first showing for Lego on process went 30 for 6, which I think is decently impressive. It gives you some faith going forward.
See, I need some enlightenment here because I've not seen any of Lego or of the new Lego.
Yeah,
and this result kind of shocks me a little bit. Like, not that I wouldn't have expected it for Lego to win, but I thought it would have been closer. Because I mean, on paper, looking at the lineup, I think Phil's a capable medic. Josh and Demul are both pretty great soldiers, but the other 3 players on the team don't particularly stand out to me. And I feel like the Nunya roster should be an upgrade from last season, because I think Early and Crafty Dave are both pretty good scouts. I don't know.
But from what I saw in the game, there was very little there was very little I could pick out from like individual play, which was like insanely good for the side of Lego or insanely bad for the side of Nunya. Really, it was literally just the fact that Nunya just couldn't push for shit. Like, I think almost every push they made was just like disastrous. Like their coordination was just like, I don't know, like way worse than I would have expected for like based on last season. Like even last season where they did horribly, I would still expect something better than this. There was like one bit. Oh, it was a disaster to watch. Domo jumped in on process last. Both teams had the Uber. Domo went in to like try and sack or whatever. Dude lives for like, I swear, it's in excess of 10 seconds, firing stickies from like panic room behind them.
Really?
They like Condog just stares at him, like literally fucking standing on the floor, stares at Domo in panic room, like, "Ha, you'll never get me," and drops. Like it was just. There must be a stream high like that. It was. I swear,
dear.
you sat there the whole time, like, "How's he not dead? How's he not dead? What's
I've
he
heard...
doing? He's been dropped."
Yeah,
baffling.
I've heard Condog has a tendency to do some things like that. Like he will supposedly, like when he's backing out, and if he's got 150 HP, he will stand still without using his movement keys, just to bait a rocket that he can surf like nicely, or whatever. Like he just does some really weird stuff on medic. So I don't know if that's what that was, but like as far as my understanding is, like a lot of the times he does this, it like costs them quite dearly.
Yeah, like it was just such a surreal moment to watch. You just, I don't know. If I didn't know better, I would expect it to be like some setup, because there's no way like a human being plays like that. I don't know. Maybe invest. Maybe I assume he had some like decent faith in his team, but that just shows like if they can't focus that kind of thing down, if they can't manage to get like even to upper IT with 2 fully buffed soldiers against an unbuffed like roamer, I don't know, that team's got some serious problems right now. Like, not to say, like there were some definite good bits. Obviously, like Domo did pound a lot. Basically, he had one particular incredibly juicy crits. His long range stickies were perfectly on point, I would say. But like I said, like considering the roster on Lego, you wouldn't expect it to be as much of a role as it actually was.
Yeah.
Like I would have expected Nunya to put up at least some kind of fight.
Yeah.
But
I think Lego
like
was surprising people as well, though. Like, because Lego, they didn't crush them, but they beat them pretty like handily. The unexpected team in preseason, and like, they went straight through. Like, I think Lego are actually like, I haven't played them yet, and I didn't watch all of this game just because of time constraints. But they're actually completely like surpassing expectations at the moment as well.
Do we know what calling structure's like on that team?
I assume it's just Josh, like the good old days.
Because my understanding is that Josh didn't enjoy main calling previously, and I'd expect if Phil was calling, I don't know if he is, but I'd expect that he has the experience to be able to transition to medic from demo and take quite a bit of control over the game. And obviously he's experienced and he's a smart player, so
maybe I couldn't attest. Josh always struck me as like one of these natural callers though, who just, it's something you can't really suppress particularly. Yeah, that's how it strikes me. But I don't know the guy that well. But either way, yeah, like I don't really know anything about Nunya. I haven't played against them. Even like as individual players, I've not really played against them. But at least like with Lego, like Phil, Josh, like they've done pretty good like so far. I think turning this sort of like weird group of misfits into something half resembling like a playoff contender. I mean, obviously they've only beaten Nunya it's week 1, but it was really like that and playoffs, like preseason playoffs put together, and they're way overshooting what I expected for them so far.
I would say I just said just quickly, I have got it confirmed. Apparently, Josh is main calling almost everything apparently, and Phil puts in a little bit here and there, but it is definitely Josh.
Yeah, dude, Josh is the man. And you can't like someone like Josh. He's just like he takes control like it's like a natural thing. I think from watching from the glimpses I've caught anyway, and from discussions I've had with people that played with him, he's just that kind of player. I think the team's better off for it as well. Like Phil will be like really nice to sort of have as like a secondary like caller, lending some like insight and information. But I mean that's just one of the things Lego have over so many other teams. Regardless of like, there's a few decent callers now playing, but Lego have like one of the few callers who can put himself at the heart of the team and sort of like carry the game as an individual, as well as like calling and controlling it. Like, I mean, the other like callers that spring to mind are people like Ombrak and these kind of guys who really don't have that much impact on the game other than their calls. And it's such an advantage to be able to do both at the same time.
Yeah. I think Adiski also has that to a good degree. I think that's one of the reasons why that team has been doing so well.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit strange because, like, looking at the list of teams and their respective players, there's a lot of players with quite high levels of potential. I think there's a lot of players that individually could like go off at any moment or could have big impact games, but I think what the teams really need if they want to establish themselves as the better teams in Prem is they need someone to coordinate these players. And I think teams with strong callers will probably be doing that to a much better degree than the teams without strong callers.
Yeah, well, I think, as much as some people don't have faith in it, I think an argument has to be made that just on Lego, you've got the Josh and Potato synergy. It's like they're basically made for each other. That is a shit joke about him being Irish because you didn't laugh and didn't even indulge me there. Okay, dude, fuck it.
It took me a while, and then I was like, why?
Nice. Slowly got there. The smoke appeared.
Yeah, sorry, just to elaborate on the last point, like, the example I'll use is Nunya, because I think, with maybe one or two exceptions, all the players on that team have quite a bit of individual potential. But I don't think they really have a designated caller that, as far as I'm aware, Ratslayer, or Bunny as he's known, does most of the calling, but I don't think he's... Based on how my understanding of how he plays demo, it doesn't seem like he's the kind of player that has like a deep understanding of the game to be able to main call in Prem.
Like my understanding, just like watching the game, the problem was less the players; it's more like the structure, the pushes, the coordination team. It was just like in pieces. But I don't know, not to rag on them too much or beef up Lego's ego too much going against the worst team in Prem. We have got the fourth match of the week. A little bit disappointing one for people. Lowpander versus Unexpected. Only difference, I think, since last episode is that Lowpander now has funds. Still have Mr. Epic, Ubers, Mookie, Hildreth, Crayon.
Well, they had funds.
Well, had funds.
I can confirm they never had funds.
Unexpected, Sorix, Kodu, Polygon, Samsky, Adiski, Babs, same as the thingy. But basically, what happened there was a solid default win for Unexpected. And this is based on a lot of information from TFTV and somewhat secondhand sources. My understanding is that there was some kind of dispute between what servers they'd play on. For some reason, Unexpected wanted to like play on German servers. Ubers was like fundamentally 100% adamant he didn't want that because he has some like dog tier connection or routing, whatever, to like German servers. Was absolutely like adamant. The funny bit that I saw was apparently Ubers was just absolutely certain that he wouldn't let Samsky win the argument, and that's why, at least one of the reasons why he fought so hard, which I think is pretty funny considering Samsky's not exactly a universally loved player by people. But so yeah, basically it got delayed to total hell. Everything was a bit of a mess, and then apparently at some point, quite a long time after the game was supposed to start, we ended up with Unexpected players and the Unexpected team's players and Mookie in the server. Mookie said, "Your guys to take the default win." Admins took that as gospel because Mookie is a leader on the ETFL page, and that's basically that. Apart from apparently Hildreth was like gonna contest a ruling, but I can't see the admins ever actually saying it wasn't a default when, like, if the dude's a leader on your roster and he says a default when it's like that long after the game started, I think it's more or less just whatever shit, like, things have happened,
My understanding of the drama is Mookie hadn't checked with his team. Like, he hadn't told his team he was going to give a default. Like, he was just fed up himself of, like...
Of Ubers.
The endless argument about not picking a server. So he said, "Oh, fuck it, you have a default."
Yeah.
And that's that.
And then that basically went through. This means maybe they're folding or something. Funds had quite enough of this. Funds left the roster, put a rec post up pretty quickly. Freyons also put a rec post up being like, "Don't know what's happening with the team. Hopefully we'll know by Sunday. Kind of want to still play the video game." Who knows if they're folding? Who knows whether they're still going to have players come Monday? I don't know. I think
they did fold, didn't they? Is that what it said on the thread? On the
I think it's like, it's not official, like, it's not 100% final yet.
I'm not trusting until like the admins put it through as in like an official fold. I don't know what will happen for Prem if it will just be like a 7-team Prem, or the fact that they folded before their first game, where the admins would try and like throw in Lottie squad or something. I don't know. It's the kind of drama. It's just I cannot believe it happened. Basically,
Yeah.
I'm like, part of me is thinking, I hope they do fold, just so we can sit there and be like, hey guys, remember that time that our Prem team folded because they were asked to play on a German server? That's literally the TLDR of it. It's just.
I like the insight Hildreth provides in some of his posts in the thread are interesting. Like as far as what it tells us about the team dynamics and the results of that altercation. I'm quoting, looking at it now, speaking on about Ubers. I never met a player so arrogant and disrespectful to his own team that he would willingly force his teammates to go through a shit server dispute and tilt us in the process. We all begged him not to make this an issue, yet he still refused to join and demanded we got an admin. And then he goes on to explain why it was the most bizarre thing he's ever seen in TF2 and how it was selfish and immature. But
this would have been like the most retarded thing I've ever seen in TF2. And that's all before the match got defolded and then the team folded as a result. Just the fucking dispute itself is so dumb. Like, I don't know how bad it is for him on a German server, but like, no matter how bad it is for you on a German server, like, I feel like you have to be so like lacking in terms of your communication skills for it to turn out like this.
Yeah.
Even if you literally can't play on a German server, like you can. I've never seen a group of teams not be able to come to some kind of agreement like amongst themselves.
Did I read something that there was like they kind of like agreed to play one map on one server and one map on the other? You know, like that's the obvious compromise, right?
Yeah.
Like
literally the solution.
There was then a further dispute about the order of the maps,
and that
playing. I can't remember which way round it was, but one team wasn't happy about playing the match on the server they wanted first, or the other team playing it on the server they wanted first would give them like too much of an advantage, or that's like an advantage, and why should they have that advantage?
It's just like, okay, honestly, considering like how Lowpander have been as a team, very very controversial, some controversial figures and stuff. I wouldn't expect it from like any other team, but the fact that it's happened still makes me think, look, guys, come on, for the good of the video game, just maybe just play the game at some point,
This is what happens when you let Highlander players into sixes.
Exactly.
I don't think we should. Go ahead.
Well, as I say, I honestly, legitimately just feel so bad for funds because last like his Prem Highlander team, his Prem Sixes team last season, both fold like before they actually get deep enough. I'm pretty sure his Highlander team folded before, like fractionally before the grand finals. Then obviously Champ folded before like doing playoffs. And now if this team folds as well, dude's basically just cursed.
Yeah.
Like, don't pick him up. You can't do it.
He was sick in GA.
Yeah, because you guys played for like a few weeks. Any more than that, dead in the water right there.
But yeah, I don't think we should jump to conclusions quite yet, because I mean we are just getting the information from this thread, and the like Hildreth's post says
but it is direct from the players, though.
Yeah, Hildreth's post said that Funds and Crayon are not pleased with it, and he's going to find it hard to rebuild the team. And he says, we have not died yet, but we will still see what we can do. So, from my understanding of it is, what we know to be the case is that Funds and Crayon have left the team, and now Hildreth is trying to rebuild the team with two of the players, Mookie and Ubers, that caused this whole situation.
That's what I love. The guys who had the clearest dispute, they're just like, no, but chill.
Yeah. It's a bit bizarre.
I find it weird.
It's a storyline I'm most looking forward to following.
Especially like what he wrote like so publicly about Ubers as well, to say something like that about someone and then continue to try and build. I believe it's like a desperation thing at this point. Like, two players leave, you then have to you have to keep what you've got. But it's really bizarre.
I wanna quote it again because it's just quite hard. Combined with the stubbornness of Ubers, have destroyed what was the best, most promising team and otherwise fun experience I ever had in TF2, and destroyed our LAN team.
How the fuck does it do that? How does
I don't know.
But then at the same point in time, in 3 to 4 days, they're planning to play an official with these two people are still planning to play an official together. Like it doesn't add up. Like I can't see how it ends up. That the
So
team would
hell of a
stay
team.
together.
It's a hell of a team, you know. That's it. We'll keep up to date with the story. We'll be releasing constant updates every 24 hours. You know, the ongoing drama.
I just don't get how it turns into a team fold from this, because it's like one guy that seems to have pissed everyone off. Why don't you just
Kick for one
replace that guy? Like, how does it turn into the
It's-
entire
like-
team fracturing?
Well, it was so. It's partly the Ubers being stubborn, and then Mookie
then
going
Mookie
out on a
making the
limb, not
decision.
speaking
Yeah.
to the team, and giving them the default win when no one else wanted to do that. They were all quite content to sit there and continue to argue for beyond the
Somehow.
25 minutes.
Somehow.
Like they'd already been late.
I guess so, but like that situation all has a root cause, and it's clearly like Uber's. Like,
Yeah,
clearly
yeah,
no
that's
one's
true,
happy
that's
with
true.
Uber's behaving like this. So you just address the root cause, and the other five, like, it's never going to happen again. Like, this is not a situation you have to like. Okay, so there's a weird conflict they have with Mookie. In the event that you can't get a match started for half an hour because a player has 20 ping higher on one server than another, it's not really something you have to account for on a day-to-day basis. You probably could carry on playing with the guy who won't put up with that if you just replace the guy causing it in the first place. I don't see how this, like, I don't know, for me at least, it's...
Assuming they don't
yeah.
replace him, if anyone from the AMS team is watching, German servers basically.
Maybe
That's how you get guaranteed 6
Maybe
points.
they have replaced, or maybe Fun's Crayon and Ubers have left, because it seems from the post that he's like forgiven Mookie. So it's Hildreth, Mookie, and who's the last player? Mr. Epic. Come on.
Yeah.
He doesn't
He's been
feature in
notably
it at all.
silent in all of this.
Yeah, but in fairness, like, can you blame him? Dude's just sitting there, just like, I don't know what's going on, guys. This is just a clusterfuck around me. I just want to play the game, dude.
I was
trying to
looking
have some
forward
fun.
to seeing Fun's and Epic as a scout duo.
Yeah, it's like a
Impressive.
massive shame that the team folds. Like, I mean, I've never like, I don't know, I'm not like massive fans of them personally, but like as a team, I thought they were more than interesting last season, and they're
Yeah,
looking to be
absolutely.
like really improved this season. It's a massive fucking shame that they're folding, but I mean, it's kind of, I mean, what a way to fold, I guess. But we can take some
You're gonna
pleasure
do
in
it.
I
that.
won't
Yeah.
forget it.
Probably would rather have watched them play some matches though than this.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see how ETF Duel addresses it.
Either way, that's basically your teams for Prem this season. Since, you know, it's a bit of a look forward to the season, I guess we should do some quick predictions of top 4 teams. Who's going to be making playoffs? Kato, what do you think? Who's your top 4? Who's going to be making it this season?
Oh shit, you're going to me first? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna win. And then
Okay.
I'm gonna go. Am's team is gonna limp into second place. Actually, shit, no, I don't know. It's hard. Are we doing season standings before playoffs, or like are we including like the playoffs having happened?
I think literally just what top 4 teams are going to be making playoffs.
Okay, so I'm gonna go us, Am's team, and then I'm gonna say Lego and Arctic Foxes and Unexpected.
I would have gone for the same.
Ah,
God damn it.
then I'll go
So,
with Lego. Okay.
I'll go with Nunya.
That
Just mean I get
too
like
brave,
Panda then.
too brave, I think. I'd say I'm putting forward 7 Lego AMS team, and I have faith in nerdRage this season to not throw. No,
Okay.
not
Not with the new nerdRage roster.
No,
Are you kidding
ignore
me?
that. Ignore that. Foxes. I was looking like, wait, I did part that wrong. Sorry, nerdRage. Foxes.
Yeah, like the Arctic Foxes defeat has got to put them out of my mind. Like they are still like a strong contender. So when I was looking at it, I completely forgot about it because they're all the way. I was looking at the table; they're all the way down in 8th, with they're below Lowpander who folded. So yeah, I kind of forgot about them.
Yeah. What I was saying earlier about there's a lot of individual talent, but there's not quite the team cohesion, and I think it's lying on the callers. In that respect, I'm gonna go out on a limb and predict Arctic Foxes to finish above Bazooka Sports. Because I think Feeling has more experience being a caller and leader, and is more direct in that regard than Smear is, despite the skill, I would say, being in favor of Bazooka Sports. I think Feeling might make the difference this season.
Yeah, it's definitely the team with. I think they're still like a team with the most potential to not only be decent but actually perform in the games where they need to perform. I feel like Bazooka Sports are just going to be super unreliable, and maybe they're going to do like a big win in playoffs or something, but they also could just like easily lose to someone you wouldn't expect them necessarily to lose to, like a Lego or someone like this or Unexpected. Whereas Artivox is like because of feeling, and same with Lego, like because of Josh. I feel like these guys could, and Adiski in Unexpected. These teams
Yeah.
with these guys I really recognize as the strong callers. Because Smith's okay at calling, but he doesn't stand out for me like these guys do. I feel like these guys could all, in theory, turn up and dependably sort of perform to a certain level, whereas Bazooka could just do everything or anything or nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing is, as much as Seven had a really easy time last season, like the current state of the teams, I still think like Seven, it's going to be too easy a win for them unless there's some serious improvement from the teams. Because
Can we?
Go on.
Is it worth going through each of the teams and addressing? Well, like what I'm thinking is which players are kind of the linchpins, or who needs to have a good season for their teams to do well. Like looking at, say, the Adiski team, for example. Like there's quite a few players there that haven't really proven themselves, and I'm quite curious as to who we'd consider to be pivotal in their roles within the team. Like, I think we can expect Adiski to play well and to have a good, consistent season, but and like Sorex as well. But with Credu, Polygon, Samsky, and Babs, I think there's I don't know enough about those players to say for sure who's gonna perform or who I'd expect to perform.
The only things I've heard about Polygon have been massively positive.
Yeah.
I don't know how biased those may have been from like who I heard it from, but I would think if the team's going to work and it's going to beat other Prem teams and like start climbing their way up the table, it's going to involve Adiski and Sorex being who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Polygon's going to have to make sure he does his big damagey pocket roll, and I assume Credu's going to make stuff happen. Like I said, you've got some really untested people, and based on the little bit I've seen of like Samsky's play, I feel like it's something which has worked against like those Prem playoff teams. Like the way they play with Samsky, it's worked against the Prem playoff teams, but I feel like it's not gonna work against better teams. I don't know, maybe it's just a bit that I've seen, but I kind of feel like it's going to end up in a position kind of like DD5F was last season, where he would do his thing and the team would play allowing DD to kind of like do what he did. And against some of like the teams which didn't have the coordination stuff like nerdRage, it would work. And then you'd go against a team like Seven and he'd just basically like hit a brick wall and just wouldn't be able to achieve what he needed to kind of make that work, and they'd get a bit stuck. That's kind of what I think. And with Lego, based on their one very kind of like one-sided game and other bits I've seen, with Lego looking like they're going to be pretty decent, like Yippie's been looking pretty decent on like Pocket Scout. I kind of feel like even a team like that, they're going to have some difficulty with, but I don't know. I think it's really unfortunate that we didn't get to see Unexpected play week 1, because I just haven't seen enough of them to make any like firm judgments, and it's one of the teams which, as I said, from my point of view, they could be up in playoffs or right down at the bottom, and neither one would massively surprise me. Just because the team is so much of a question mark for me.
I think it's like reliable to say that the 7 Bazooka Sports and Arctic Foxes will be playoff contenders, but aside from that, it like gets really, I don't know, it's muddy waters. Like,
yeah,
like,
the whole mid
unexpected,
I think it's gonna be a real fighting ground.
Yeah, I think some teams have had better form as of late. I think Unexpected have been playing pretty well and surprising a lot of people, and that's why they stand out to me as like they're gonna continue on that trajectory and end up in playoffs. But I mean, it could be like a number of these teams. Like,
part of it could be because they're new as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, you see it a lot, like where a team that people haven't seen play before or like haven't had any engagement or scrims with will get an upset or two, you know, early part of the season, but then teams see them play, teams see their matches, they scrim them more, and suddenly they're figured out.
I feel like with Unexpected, there's a lot of like just to go back to the Polygon thing that you brought up a minute ago, Epley, I would agree with the general consensus that he's very pleasantly surprising at the moment, but he has like the massive advantage of having like absolutely nothing, like people expect nothing, so whatever they're getting is automatically positive from him because he's just like completely anonymous as far as like most people are concerned. I mean, even in that team, Credu is like the plucky up and coming player that stands out. So Polygon doesn't even have that like weight resting on his shoulders. Like to people who kind of like, at least that's how it was put to me. Credu is sort of like the carry scout who's going to drop 30 frags and like he's going to be like the upcoming talent this season or whatever. That's how most people would see it. So Polygon doesn't even have that like burden. He literally can just do whatever, and anything he does is a plus as far as like that, you know, the average eye is concerned. And I mean, so far he's doing very well. So it's like automatically like massive plaudits are going toward him, but it's not until we kind of get midway through the season and people are used to like actually like knowing what they're going to get from him. Like once people realize there's actually something to get from him, like how consistently can he do it and to what level can he do it against the better opposition? Because I know he can do it to some extent, but because I expected so little, I guess it's like anything would have been good.
My understanding of Polygon as a player is he's one of those guys that's played a shit ton of like MG or DM or whatever and just has really good mechanics. But I haven't seen evidence or heard like anecdotal evidence of him being like a particularly smart player or anything. I mean, he could be.
I think he's quite actually smart. Like he's quite reliable. He seems like he doesn't seem to do a lot of dumb mistakes, which is the main thing.
Like speaking on what we said earlier about pockets needing to have that mechanical consistency where there's a bit more leeway in terms of decision making and game sense. If he's one of those players that's got consistently good mechanics, there was a stream highlight of you getting double air shot.
I did crush the team on Choke Fast though. My team should have backed me up.
Yeah, so
that's
Polygon,
why I folded.
Polygon, the folder of teams. With him playing, I'm not sure who's the pocket scout here, but
it's Credu.
It's Credu. So if he's like a talent upcoming player, like you say he is, and then Polygon's fitting into a combo with a talented upcoming scout and a stable, like I'd say pretty strong calling demo in the combo. If he just needs to fit in with consistent players and do his role with his mechanical ability, he's probably going to shine. And I think from what I've played against and what I know of Samsky, I think he plays the roamer role pretty well. But I don't know. And I think there's also like quite a bit of off-class potential on this team. Like Samsky can be quite a good sniper at times, and I think Credu also, but I'm not certain about those.
I think Samsky's like their main utility, at least from watching them. That's the guy who's doing it. I don't know like what other weapons they have in their arsenal potentially, but the plan seems to be that Samsky does it. Polygon also seems to be quite calm because like I watched their stream when we were going to play them because I didn't know anything about them, so I like watched their stream to kind of see what they were doing. And Polygon, as well as all the things you said about kind of having he just sort of needs to slot in. He seems quite calm and like quite chill on the comms, which is like a big plus because sometimes you can try and do too much, or you can be way too active and like cause too much tension, or like too much. You like bring too much energy to like quite a calm setup, and you can sort of destabilize it.
Other Brit soldiers tend to do that.
Yeah, whereas he's playing in a team where he just needs to slot in, and he's not doing anything like loud or obnoxious or anything like this. He's just there playing and being quite dependable as far as I can tell. So he can do good.
That's it. As long as dude's hitting his rockets and stuff, you don't really need to think if Adisky's making all the decisions for them, you know? If Adisky's there leading the charge and like telling everyone to do what's what, Polygon can sit on that 12 hours a day MG if he fancies, and that's more or less all he needs, you know? But yeah, well, we've more or less hinted at some suggestions, some predictions based on our very, very limited knowledge. We've given you your little rundown, talk of week 1 games, and I think that's more or less it for our season 27 preview. Unless there's anything else people want to add? Pretty happy. Any shout outs, additional bits anyone wants to throw down? Kato, do you not have some 7 related thing to mention?
Oh yeah, we got the shirts finally. So the guys, we found them. I scared my cat. We finally got the fucking shirts with people's names on them to send to people who paid hundreds of fucking dollars for them. So they'll be coming soon, everybody. And also we will do the raffle in the next week. We might do it on the next Pirate Radio just because I'm cheap and lazy, but we might also just do a different video for that. So that'll be a thing that will happen. And I'm announcing it here because I'm again cheap and lazy. But it's happening. I didn't rip you guys off.
You will
get your $100 worth of things.
You just got to pay for the posters now.
Yes.
Exactly. CX, anything to add? Any shout-outs? Anything you want to say?
No? Looking forward to next week for our week 1 preview.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
News?
I plan to get back on streaming, so once I get cheering set up on my stream for those bits, hopefully I'll be streaming like Saturdays and Sundays during the day from here on. So tune in, twitch.tv/news_. Thank you very much.
Oh
For
yeah.
advertising. Been a lovely guest.
And thanks to Ryan for probably not being there at the moment, but PC is doing hard work.
Possibly drunk in his kitchen. So if there's about 10 minutes at the end of this video where we're just standing around, sitting around, whatever, that'll probably be why. Yeah. I think that's more or less it. Catch you next time.
Freeze.
There we go.
Reckon it's that.
Insert cut here.
Oh, I have no idea if he's here. Fuck, do I have to call him?
I gotta fucking run. Holy shit, I'm so late.
Oh,